Hello and good afternoon, everybody. My name is VJ Thomas, and I am the CEO of Tangentia. I think we'll give everybody maybe a minute more to join, and we will get started. So, thank you very much, all of you who've made it today. And let's give everybody maybe a minute more, and then we can get started. Thank you. So, hello again, everybody, and welcome. Uh, my name is VJ Thomas, and we'll really thank everybody for taking time out of the busy day to make it to our webinar. Uh, we have some exciting things to discuss. The topic for today is enhancing SAP with Microsoft Power Platform. A lot of you have probably made huge investments in SAP and are wondering, how do I get an ROI out of my SAP investments? How do I make SAP agile? How can I make SAP jump hoops? How can I make SAP do things? And all of that is possible. But if you've been working with SAP, you've known it does, take a lot of effort, a lot of time and money to do that. And I think with our friends from Microsoft, we think we have a solution that's quite a bit agile, quite a bit streamlined, and we will go into details today to understand how we can go with the Microsoft Power Platform to surround SAP and also convert, go in with a system of engagement with Microsoft Power Platform and letting SAP continue to be the system of record. We'll go in a little more detail, but I think that is the gist of the story, gist of what we're going to hear today. And we'll also end up with showing you how. Next slide, please. Today, in our midst, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of John Gilman. John's Director, Microsoft Automation. John has been in the automation business for a couple of years and leads the SAP integration. John, welcome, John. Made time for us. He's in the middle of some meetings, and I really appreciate you coming here. We also have Raina Harrison, who's Director Specialist for the Power Platform. Raina, thank you again for making time for us today. We have also from Tangentia, Ashwini Hegde, who's our Practice Head Automation. Ashwini, thank you very much for joining us. We will talk about maximizing SAP value with the world's leading low-code platform. And this will be done by Raina. We will then have John taking us through more detail with SAP and Power Platform in action. And then from the Tangentia side, we would look at the SAP extension, a demo of an SAP extension template and an implementation approach. So we will not just tell you what you can do with this, we'll also tell you how you can do it and how quickly you can get started and how you can get this done. And then obviously, so keep your questions handy, and our August panel will answer them. Next, please. A little bit about Tangentia. We want to position ourselves as a technology company for the autonomous enterprise. So we're not just going for an automated enterprise. We want an autonomous enterprise. So our North Star is autonomous enterprise. Our logo says future is autonomous. We truly believe in the autonomous enterprise. And you will hear, today, how you can get closer to the autonomous enterprise, using Microsoft Power Platform. We're around 300 employees worldwide, 13 Fortune 500 customers, and on our own platforms, more than $13 billion of revenue flows over our platforms. Next, please. We'll go over these slides quickly. Some of our partners, certifications, awards, and recognition. We're ISO 27000, ISO 9000, SOC 1, SOC 2 certified. Everything that you think in terms of credibility from a large enterprise, solution provider, we have all of that with the agility of a small company. So you've got best of both worlds with Tangentia. Next, please. We're also made it to Forrester on the landscape reports. We're the top 20 companies in the world in terms of RPA. Next, please. So the Microsoft partnership. So Tangentia and Microsoft work very closely together, and we call this a 360-degree relationship. We power a lot of solutions. Tangentia Intelligent Automation is our SaaS platform. It's powered by Microsoft. We also have a complete, Power Platform solution stack, and we'll go into a little more detail in all of that. So 360 degrees, not just we surround SAP 360 degrees, we can take care of everything around Power Platform, around the journey to autonomous enterprise. Next, please. A unique partnership. We think we're a Microsoft strategic partner for your SAP investments. We've been more than 20 years in this business. More than 10 projects that we've delivered, in this Microsoft Power Platform, surround SAP, surround ERP domain in this strategy, in this paradigm of creating agile, lightweight, systems of engagement that surround a system of record like SAP. We've got experience in almost 15 plus industries. We got a lot of certified people, 24 PL 500, 18 PL 400, I think 5 plus PL 600s as well. We also do training for Microsoft. We've done more than 12, XIAD, which is an app in a day, RP in a day, and we got more than 55 people. So in the team that Ashwini heads within Tangentia, we have more than 55 certified Microsoft people. Next, please. Okay, so our service offering, professional services, platform migration services, people have tried doing this in some shape or form, but if you want to move to the best, and Raina will go into a little more detail, one of the leading low-code platforms that does automation, does low-code app development, all of that, we can do some of the migration as well and managed services. Next, please. And there is already platform use cases. So some of the stuff, we will go into some details in order to cash, procure to pay, but in each of these different industries, Microsoft has already pre-built, configurations, pre-built connectors, pre-built templates, use cases, workflows that we can bring to the table right away. So you don't need to start from scratch, do all these things. So whichever industry you're in, whichever process you're trying to get started with, Tangentia, along with Microsoft, has a quick to market solution using either off-the-shelf Tangentia templates or off-the-shelf Microsoft templates to get this done. Next, please. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Raina. Raina, thank you for making time today, and we're all eagerly waiting to hear from you how SAP and Power Platform can make life easier for everybody that's made all those big investments in SAP.
Yeah, thank you so much. Next slide, please. All right, fantastic. So I think as we all are aware, like the reality is that SAP sits at the critical nerve center of an organization. So whether that's finance, HR, or supply chain, and as the unique needs of the business evolve and change over time, every SAP environment needs to be molded and extended to address those specific requirements, right? And that's not unusual in the context of these monolithic applications. I mean, we all know SAP is essentially the concrete pillars holding up the entire house. And across different lines of business, there's always going to be a constant influx of challenges when it comes to catering to specific needs, whether that's from a user perspective, types of roles, or even just different devices across the business. And that can become even more pronounced when customers are just using SAP extensibility tools alone. Next slide, please. So customers have to deal with resource constraints first and foremost, right? So we're all aware there's only so much bandwidth. Customers, we all have to be opportunistic on how you deploy that bandwidth. We know that extending SAP with its own native developer tool set, it can be expensive, costly, complex, and contingent upon developer resourcing and availability. And from a scope perspective, SAP extensibility tools are brilliant at what they do, right? But they're really optimized to work best within the application boundary, meaning they're great at enhancing or refining or tailoring a process as long as it's kind of self contained within an SAP environment. But the business is often faced with scenario and requirements that kind of go outside the bounds of SAP, right? So, for instance, maybe it's combining SAP and sales data to create a mobile experience, or you're looking to develop a chatbot to check stock levels at SAP while using Teams. And let's be clear, you can leverage native SAP tools to kind of build those experiences, but it's a heavy technical lift. From a cost of ownership perspective, there's this whole mantra that, we've been beaten over the head years and years, right? You have to keep the core clean. You've got to work through how you're going to organize and focus your extensions so you're preserving the core of SAP to really be future proof for the business. Especially when you need to upgrade or ensure there's a level of continuity for the business. And that's only going to become more and more pronounced as you move to the cloud. Frankly, the biggest elephant in the room that we see is governance, right? And we see this time and time again when the business introduces workarounds to SAP, really in order to just get things done, right? So perhaps you've got to develop bespoke solutions, or you're doing unnatural things in SharePoint, or you've got Excel spreadsheets flying all over the place. Um, it introduces a level of risk and rough edges across the business, right? And if this is all happening on a different platform, there can be compliance and security risks around where that data is stored and really who's accessing it, right? So if we're to contextualize all of that, how the rough edges of SAP can result in these inefficient workarounds, I think it sets us up really nicely to have a conversation around low code. Next slide, please. So, what's the opportunity with SAP and Power? So, Power Platform allows our customers to drive an unmatched agility layer across their business. So, you're really able to build these intelligent, connected solutions in and around SAP, all in the flow of work. And what makes Power Platform really shine is that ability to surround and extend BTP even further when it comes to enriching or transforming solutions across the business. So, not only can you leverage a low code platform where you can build these really modern, elegant solutions for the business that can run on any device, but then you're able to automate those key processes that surround and touch SAP and other line of business data, right? And you can surface all of that information to the right users at the right time in the flow of work, using the productivity tools that we know and love every day. And then from there, you can leverage a cloud data platform that's scalable, it's compliant, it's performant, but also allows you to safely store data that surrounds a process in SAP. So, for instance, customers are swimming in data. That surrounds a business process and it needs a home. So, for example, when we talk to manufacturers, like everyone wants to build an inspections app for a plant floor. And while you don't necessarily need photos or geolocation data that needs to get sent back to SAP, that information is just as important to execute a process around inspections. And you need a safe place to store it, right? And that's really where the power of Dataverse comes in. And then finally, because we're at this tipping point where customers can transform SAP experiences with AI, you're really able to infuse intelligence across every area of your business, both for the end user and for the maker. So, gone are the days where you need a person reviewing attachments, figuring out what you're going to do in a shared inbox. You can completely automate that process and you don't have to be a professional developer to make that happen. Next slide, please. So let's walk through how we drive greater agility at scale with a low code strategy that amplifies the work you're already doing today in BTP, and really how we can drive this further across SAP. And if you want to build out that slide, that would be fantastic. So at the heart of SAP is really all of that core out of the box functionality and capabilities, right? And customers are encouraged to keep the core clean, as I mentioned, for many reasons. Look, it reduces time, complexity when it's time to upgrade. It reduces the need for complex infrastructure, even maintenance requirements. But just outside this core is really where this adjacency layer lives. So really think of this middle layer where you can extend SAP because you've got to keep the core clean, but customers have requirements that are really specific to their business or industry. So you can either make those changes with BTP, especially if that process is going to live within SAP, or you can complement this strategy and extend a process even further with Power. So, for example, let's say employees need quick access to inventory in SAP. You can develop a chatbot. You can check stock levels in SAP using natural language without ever having to leave Teams. And that's really what makes this such an incredibly powerful, better together story, right? So, these two platforms absolutely complementary to each other. And beyond the boundaries of this is really where Power Platform shines, right? So it transcends all of that line of business systems, those data. You can extend SAP and in scenarios where SAP isn't even in the picture. And as a result, really think of Power as that top layer of your innovation strategy where you can drive agility at scale across the enterprise. So I want to double click on how we bring this together from a platform perspective. So again, in a single low code platform, you can leverage a suite of capabilities when it comes to SAP, ranging from hyper automation all the way to building apps to really creating that collaborative experience across the business. And then you can bring in machine learning, couple that with trend analysis, any sort of predictive capabilities into all of the solutions and processes that surround SAP. And not only are there hundreds of ways to connect to your data sources, but then you're able to uptake all of that native built in security, scalability, of Azure, right? And then from there, through our BI stack, you have that ability to reason over your data. You can drive insights across the business and you can get super granular even through process mining, right? Really to figure out areas of improvement across the business. So not only can you leverage the breadth and depth of Power Platform for SAP workloads, but what I love is our platform goes even further in terms of composability. So you're really able to bring together all of these capabilities, connect them across hundreds of apps to really build these end-to-end solutions for the business. Next story, please. All right, perfect. So I love to bring this to life by talking about a customer. And for a second, I want us to all imagine that we're field sales reps for Coca Cola before they deployed Power, really is that agility layer for their SAP estate. And you've got a territory to manage, right? So you get a notification that one of the machines in your Tennessee territory is running low on Coca Cola syrup. So as that field sales rep, you'd kick off an 11-step, highly manual process by placing the order in SAP's CRM system, which would then ultimately be fulfilled by a third-party supplier. So meanwhile, on the back end, orders are mounting, right? So there's a backlog of around 50,000 requests. You can only handle 50 a day. And so their IT leadership knew like we've got a replenishment and supply chain nightmare on our hands, and there's got to be a better way. So, given that they were an Azure shop and they had a very extensive SAP estate, low code became really interesting to Coca Cola. So, they decided to completely automate this 11-step process through Power Automate. Also, by leveraging RPA. And not only were they able to redeploy those 10 employees that were dedicated to this fulfillment process, but then they were able to scale their business by automating their internal processes as well as their own supplier network. So, just a fantastic end to end story on really how they were able to automate a really complex, arduous process and just simplify it. Next story, please. So next, Coca-Cola then turned their attention to manage for shipments, right? So really think of this as orders that were initiated by customers. So previously, their account reps had to submit orders. They were checking inventories manually. That would lead to shipping delays. It would impact customer service. And quite honestly, after they deployed Power to really kind of address this area, what used to take half a day to validate inventories and other data could be completed in seconds, right? So those orders not only had fewer errors, but faster delivery times and really drove an increase in sales for Coca Cola. And final slide, please. So one thing I love to call attention to is finance, right? And this is an area that impacts every single SAP customer. So we're all familiar with EY, professional services firm. I think around 300,000 employees, 200,000 employees, like extensive SAP estate, right? And so their financials team set their sights on improving a core operational pillar of their business, which was global finance. So their GL process was incredibly painful. So there was data transfer between multiple geographies. It was very error prone. It was highly manual and took days. They had a 400 employee group that was part of this organization, they would leverage a third party to validate this data and then send it back if there were errors. So as part of leveraging SAP Empower to address kind of this pre-processing problem they were having, it allowed them to reduce costs, increase productivity, and really drive agility at scale. And it allowed those 400 employees to really spend their time focusing on more strategic activities for the business. So great end-to-end example of how customers are leveraging Power across SAP. So with that being said, I'll hand it over to John.
Thank you, Raina, and thank you, VJ, for the intro earlier. So I've known VJ and the folks at Tangentia for a long time. They do really good work, and we're excited to be partnering with them on the whole SAP surround strategy. So we have a relatively new organization within Microsoft called Power Accelerator, and what we're really focused on is honestly accelerating the adoption of the Power Platform at large enterprises. So one of our first initiatives was to create enterprise templates wrapped around SAP. So we started with procure to pay because, kind of regardless of the industry you're in, if you're running SAP, it's very likely you're running, you're purchasing through SAP's P2P solution. So we initially created 6 apps. These are pre-built Power Apps for vendor maintenance all the way through approving a vendor invoice and releasing it for payment. Those are totally configurable. They're meant to be a great starting point, but also to cut down on the amount of time it takes for your organization to get a fully functional app up and running. And then behind the scenes, the real power is all the pre-built Power Automate cloud flows we have integrating directly with SAP and working with published APIs from SAP to approve a purchase order, to create a vendor. You name what happens in procure to pay, we have a pre-built cloud flow with all of the appropriate data mapping to make it work against your SAP system. So it's really about time to value here. We like to say, 3 apps in 30 days. If you have a well-oiled machine within your, process optimization department or, whatever you may call it, operational excellence, you can get 3 of these live in 30 days. It's a matter of importing them in, tweaking it to meet your needs as an organization, working with business folks to gather feedback, but it's pretty lightweight compared to building a Canvas app from scratch and having to do a lot of research and figure out, what the APIs are that you need to call to, approve a vendor invoice, for example. So, we're going to continue to build out this pre-built content to, help demystify SAP integration, but we've gotten some really great feedback so far from a number of customers out there like Manitoba Hydro, Love's Travel Stops. They've imported our procurement solution and are anxiously awaiting our next set of templates. So if we can flip to the next slide. Couple things happening behind the scenes. So a little context here. Microsoft acquired a company I started about 2 years ago called Clear Software, and we were very heavily focused on digital transformation and automation within the ERP space. So, typically that means SAP or Oracle E-Business Suite. Those are 2 of the big ERPs we focused on. We spent 2022 really focused on getting all of that functionality into the Power Platform. So that meant a new SAP connector with enhanced single sign-on capabilities. So now, to set up, Active Directory with the Power Platform with SAP is now much easier than it used to be. We also support load balancing, which is good because, any customer of size is going to have load balancing set up for, tens of thousands or potentially hundreds of thousands of employees. So we've added support for that. If we can flip to the next slide. So some other things here too that we added in 2022 had to do with just ease of use within the Power Automate Cloud Flow Builder. So just making it easier to integrate with SAP's APIs. So, we talked about on the template side that we're already giving you several dozen pre-built cloud flows out of the box, but they're also much easier to read now. mainly because, SAP's APIs can be very complex. You can have 30 or 40 parameters, and some of those parameters could have, several thousand data fields inside their metadata definition. So it can be pretty complicated to interact with those. So we worked with our user experience team to sort of streamline and simplify what that experience looks like. So it's just easier to understand what's going on once you get under the hood and start, modifying the pre-built templates that we have. And then we also achieved feature parity with logic apps. So a lot of organizations for their SAP surround strategy will use a blend of the Power Platform plus Azure native tools. And essentially the equivalent of Power Automate in the Azure world is logic apps. So we wanted to make sure that both technologies were using the same code base and that we had feature parity. So that was a pretty big accomplishment in 2022. Then if we can flip to the next slide. Other things for any nerds like me who have spent, decades messing around with SAP integration, we added within the Logic Apps expression language new functions to process some of the nuances of working with SAP data, like removing leading zeros, adding them back, doing all that fun stuff. So there's some great functions there. And then if we can flip to the next one, I think I just have one more, if I remember correctly. So we also released a new on-premises data gateway, and that plays into the streamlined single sign-on functionality that we added. So today, what we have now is we've enabled a feature called constrained Kerberos delegation inside the on-premises data gateway, and what that means is, in business terms, when a user is transacting data in Power Apps, for example, they're creating a new purchase order. When they click save, that data from the Power App is then going to flow through the on-premises data gateway. The data gateway with constrained Kerberos delegation means that it can go to Active Directory and say, hey, I need to get the SAP ID for this person who just clicked save in the Power App. And I also need to get a ticket from Active Directory that I can pass to SAP for authentication reasons. And then what that ensures is when the process is done and you've saved the purchase order in Power Apps, your user ID in SAP will reflect that you were in fact the person who transacted that data. And that's important, obviously, for a lot of reasons, but mainly audit trail and maintaining the integrity that that SAP already has. So, very, very excited to continue to expand upon this SAP surround strategy. We have around every month a training course for partners to get involved and get trained on the templates that we're providing. Tangentia was the very first partner to take that training course and to get folks up to speed. So they're way ahead of the curve. So we're excited to work with them, but we're all in on this strategy and very excited to see what comes from it. So I believe that was my last slide.
Can't remember. Thank you very much, John. We definitely want you to hang around for the Q&A. But we'll head to Ashwini now. Ashwini, if you can take us through the demo proof of concept. We heard the benefits of doing this. All the good stuff. How do we actually do this? How does somebody that's in the audience that wants to get started? What is an actual? How do we get started? What's a proof of concept?
Sure.
And then if you can do that demo so that they can actually see this. So over to you, Ashwini.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Vijay and John. Daryl, next slide, please. Yeah. So hi everyone, I shall be walking you through the demo today on some of the procure to pay processes. Continuing from what John mentioned, I think some of the processes and the way it gets connected to SAP, etc. John basically has made my life easy today for the next session. So we have a mixed audience, I believe. We have people from the technical side as well as some of them from the functional side. So I'm going to try and keep this simple and not go too technical. But however, if anybody has any technical questions, we could take them or we could connect later and take that forward as well. right? So what I will be showing you is basically how a purchase order is created through these templates, how the purchase requisitions are created, purchase orders are created, how they get approved. Once they get approved, they go to the vendor. The vendor delivers the goods are received, how the good receipt note is created, and how it goes to the accounts payable team where the vendor invoices are processed, booked into the system, and how the vendor payment gets done. Okay, Daryl, next slide, please. Yeah. So yeah, this is the demo recording. So what we have done is we have pre-built some of the processes. So on the left-hand side, if you see, we have few modules, the vendor module, purchase requisition, the PR module. If you can just hold on, just few, yeah. The purchase order module, GRN, invoice, and the payments module. Now, the front end, which you see, is built with Power Apps. And in the background, we have Power Automate connecting to SAP through the SAP connectors. And that is through the BAPI functions and the RFC calls. So there are various user roles here. So there could be people from the supply chain side who would be requesting the purchase requisitions or the purchase orders. There are people from the warehouse who are actually receiving the goods. There are people from the accounts payable team who are actually booking the invoices. And there is a finance team who's actually making the payment to the vendor. So there are different role configurations. Like John mentioned, we need to connect to SAP and figure out what is the exact role of that person who is playing the role here. Okay, so Daryl, please play the video. So I shall also explain as the video plays. So what right now we're trying to do is we're trying to create a purchase request. So like any organization has, so we would be choosing the vendor from whom we need the goods to be delivered. We are actually keying in what goods to be delivered. We are actually keying in the line items in the purchase order. So if you see, we want to procure the laserjet printers. So we are putting in what quantity we want to. So basically, these are all pre-built templates which have the connections to SAP. So we already created one. And if you see how easy or how seamless it is, if you try doing this in SAP, probably it is going to take a longer period for you, longer time for you. But with the Power Apps, which is a low-code tool, so it's going to be very, very easy. So we are creating a second line item, which is the paper, printer paper. So we created first laserjet printer and now with the paper. Okay, so when you save it, it actually hits SAP, gets the request number, and then comes back and displays the request number here. So if you see now we have PR, which is a request number. We now converted the PR into a PO. So there is a purchase order, which is automatically created here. Daryl, if you can please pause. Yeah, so this is generally the process which happens in most organizations, but however, your organization could maybe following some other process. So we can customize these templates according to your needs. Yeah, Daryl, please. Okay, so if you see, this is a purchase order which is created. Now the purchase order is getting approved. So there are again various ways we could approve it. Daryl, if you can please hold again. Yeah. So the one which you see, approve button, this is embedded in the app itself. So if the approver wants, the approver can come into the app, look for the purchase order and go ahead and approve it. The second way to do is you could even do it through the Teams. So we have an integration with the Teams. You just open your Microsoft Teams. From there, you have a approval section. You could see all the pending request. You could go choose and approve it. The third way you could approve is you could do it through the email. So whenever a purchase order is created and you're an approver, it comes to you through email. Just open the email. You have all the details there. You choose approve or reject. But right now, what I'm showing you is approving through the app itself. Yeah, please continue. So the purchase order is now gone to the vendor. The vendor has delivered the goods. Now, once the goods are delivered, we got to be making the GRN, which is the goods receipt note. So we are actually filling in some data as to where the goods need to be placed, how much quantity is received versus how much was placed. So all of that, if you see, we are trying to fill in for this. And now again, we are saving it. As soon as you save, it again hits the SAP. The GRN number is taken back from SAP and displayed here. Yeah. So now it has come to the AP team, accounts payable team. So accounts payable team is actually booking the invoice. So if you see some of the steps here, so it's actually going and booking the invoice. So, it's being checked whether the goods received versus the PO, the posting date, the currency. I mean, the general practice of booking the invoice, whether the totals are matching, the taxes are matching, all of that is being done here. So if you see the status of the document has been changed now to posted. So again, everything, what I'm saying, everything is happening real time with SAP there. In SAP, it is getting updated and SAP is sending response back. Yeah. So I think the last part of it is the payments. Yeah, so you could see how much payment or against which invoice the payments are made, and then we could take this integrated with the bank portals. Yeah, so let me just reiterate the whole demo in just a minute now. So we saw how a vendor gets created, how a purchase requisition gets created, how it goes to SAP and the PR number is given back, how a purchase order gets created automatically, how the purchase order gets approved, how the goods received get into the system, the GRN number is generated. Then we have the vendor invoices verified and posted into the system. Then the invoices are sent to payment. Okay. Yeah. So this is the POC implementation approach. So what we are doing is Tangentia is offering a proof of concept to its customers where we would be picking up one use case. You could choose the use case. It could be procure to pay, it could be order to cash, or it could be any of your supply chain related, your retail business related, it could be any manufacturing related. You pick up the use case and we shall uh, do the POC in 4 weeks time. So in week 1, what we will be doing is we will be analyzing your requirements. We'll be understanding what is your pain point. We will scope out what can be taken in the POC. We will talk to your SAP teams. We will get their help in getting the configuration set up, the ERP, everything set up. Then we will be moving on to the actual development of the POC. So there are already some pre-built templates from Microsoft. If that fits in your bill, we completely reuse that. But if there are some customizations which we need to make for you, we would definitely be making that. We will be using the Power Platform tools to build the UI and the workflows, and the SAP connectors we'll be using to connect to your SAP. So all this we do in week 2 and week 3. In the week 4, we will give this whole application to you for your testing. So, and in that week, if there are any minor changes to be done or any connections to be established, we shall be doing that. And we will be pushing this app in your environment to go live. So you can actually start using these applications by the week 4. In week 5, it's more of a hypercare kind of a week, wherein we will be monitoring the application runs, and if there are any minor issues, we shall be fixing that. Plus, we shall also be helping you take this enterprise-wide or the organization-wide. So we will help you put up a governance plan, we will help you put up a COE, and if there are more processes to be taken up, we shall also do a estimate and the cost proposal and come up with a plan and all of the regular software lifecycle processes. Okay, Daryl, next one, please. Okay, so I think some of it Raina has covered and John also has covered it. So I'm gonna very quick on this. What we have seen with our customers who have used this Power Platform and the SAP platform, so the solution needn't really be developed for months together, and we don't need to really wait for 3 months, 6 months for the solution to come out and then we start using it. These are done and developed and put onto your environments in 4 to 6 weeks of time. It's very, very quick. And what we have seen, we saw some use cases, right? Let's say the purchase order creation. Typically, it takes, anywhere between 12 to 15 minutes because you need to open the ERP, you need to, fill in a lot of details. And if there is a list of items to be added into that purchase order, it really takes a longer time. But then with these applications, which are very, very user-friendly, it takes like less than few minutes. And then the integration with SAP also happens seamless and in real time. So that way, what we have seen is some of our customers claim that they have increased the productivity 5x. So they're able to punch the orders, they're able to make payments 5x times faster than what they used to make earlier with the traditional route of filling all the data into SAP. And we are also saying that with all of this happening, a lot of rework costs also has reduced, because when we create anything, it needs to go for an approval. Approver says something to be reworked, we rework. There's a lot of manual thing happening, which I think is now coming down by 70 to 80% of the time. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. There I go. I mean, I think that was the end of the demo session. So if there are any technical questions, we could even take it now, or probably we could connect later and do that also.
So thank you very much, Ashwini. I would encourage everybody, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat, or just raise your hand and we will take your question. We also, I think, have some questions that have come directly in the chat. So John and Raina, if you're here, I think I have got one question. The question is, if people have invested in SAP and also BTP, do they need, I think Rana, you showed the BTP and Power Platform coexisting, but if some people have not bought BTP, do they need to buy BTP, or can we go Power Platform straight to SAP as well without BTP?
Yeah, so Power Automate, we went past, I think about a year ago, past 1,000 connectors into different systems of record. So it's by far, the most mature low-code, no-code integration platform on the planet. So I think there's definitely a higher level of maturity on that side when compared to BTP. So, I mean, if you're kind of evaluating both of them right now, I think BTP can make sense if the entire context of your integration is within the SAP ecosystem. But as soon as you start bringing in Salesforce, Oracle, Workday, different different systems of record with different connection protocols, it's time to look at a more robust solution that's got easier connectors.
Yeah, but do we need BTP at all? I mean, could we, if somebody's could these connectors go direct without BTP as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. You don't need BTP for this to work. So
Yeah.
our SAP connector connects directly to SAP's APIs. So the beauty of that is you don't have to write any custom code. If you've got a fairly complex process that needs to call, 3 or 4 functions in SAP, you can do that inside of Power Automate. You don't have to write custom ABAP code to make that happen.
Absolutely. So no, so John, that's something that we've been doing at many of our customer sites as well. So any of you out there, in two minds about how to go about doing this, and I think Microsoft is already in many of your companies on your desktop. You're already engaging with each other. You're already collaborating. Teams, Outlook. You're already using all of this. So the beauty of this is you're already engaging. It's your system of engagement. You can now also do this for work. An approval request can pop up in your Teams, and you can then approve it. So and also backend automations can also take place. Any other questions, folks? I mean, we have time here. I think there is some question. Okay, so we got a couple of questions. John,
I can
Raina
attack
will
those
take this from
too.
you. You can take those ones. Yes, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, so the difference between Fiori and Power Apps is just ease of configuration and speed. So if you've got a Fiori app that you need to customize, it's probably better to look at Power Apps, mainly because to add your own custom fields to Power Apps is just configuration. There's actually no code involved at all. Whereas in the Fiori world, you may be modifying OData services, so copying the SAP standard, building your own custom function modules, your own custom fields in a custom Fiori app. So start to hear the word custom a lot. That usually means slower. It's going to take more time to develop. You're going to have to hire an expensive guy like VJ to make that happen for you. So, the Power Platform is all about agility and doing things faster, so that you can return value to your business counterparts much more quickly. And then there's also a question about VAPIs and indirect use policy. So as long as your users have a direct or indirect license, they can consume BAPIs. So if they have an existing named user license, they're fine. If you're talking about bringing on a new set of users that previously did not have access to SAP, in that case, you can use indirect user licenses, which are typically much cheaper than a direct named user license. But either way, you're still going to have the full audit trail of which users transacted which processes.
Thank you, John. And we've seen this globally, especially outside of North America, especially in Asia. The surround strategy is also a way to optimize SAP licensing. It is something that is probably not as widespread in North America, but we have some of our global customers that have looked at this and said we can use indirect users. And not everybody has to log into SAP. So not everybody in the company needs to be an SAP user. People that need to really engage with SAP, use that, but everybody else engages with a system of engagement like the Power Platform. So any other questions, folks? We still have 10 minutes. Ashwini, Raina, any other comments from you folks? Raina, you've been doing this for some time as well. Anything that you might want to add, in terms of best practices, gotchas, things that you've seen? We definitely are talking SAP, but this can lend itself to any ERP system as well. So anything that you might want to speak, Raina?
Yeah, I just noticed that there was a question in the chat around when to use what. And I would just echo George's comment. I think he had left below that. There's going to be instances where, like, look, if you already own BTP and you're looking to drive extensibility within an SAP environment, like our position is like continue to use those native extensibility tools. But anytime you're looking to work outside the confines of SAP or surface an information or a process flow in Teams or in another line of business system or in an app, um, that's when it would be a great idea to explore Power Platform and just the value that it can drive across your business.
Thank you. And I think, John, if you can just have a look at the Q&A session, there's 3 questions there. Rama
Yes,
has.
we covered the first 2, and then there's a new one, integrity of SAP system. So, SAP's published APIs take care of that. So if you've got user exits built into transactions, those user exits are still going to get triggered by, by the APIs. We've rarely seen in the thousands of customers we've seen implement this. We've rarely seen any code remediation needed. Because SAP is pretty good about that. And then I think the general rule of thumb that I like to give customers when they're talking about using SAP's tooling versus using the Power Platform is, if it requires a workbench transport, then you probably should look at the Power Platform. And for those who don't know what a workbench transport is, basically, if you need to write any custom code of any kind in SAP, if you need to tack a custom field onto a table, that sort of thing, then it's probably time to look at the Power Platform.
Thanks, John. Ashwini, we had a recent customer where we did something very similar to Business Central, which is again Microsoft. So Power Platform, in essence, can simplify it, and we did this around Business Central, and I think there was some benefit there as well. But so Ashwini, if you want to, just the same philosophy works even on lighter weight, ERP systems like Business Central. So any additional comments that you might want to say around that?
Sure, Vijay. I mean, we are talking about SAP, but I would like to deviate a little and say it's just not with SAP. The Power Platform works with any ERP, be it the Workday and, like Vijay is mentioning, the business platform, or Dynamics, or any other platform, right? So it's pretty simple. It connects easily, and the customers are happy at the end of the day because it gets delivered in like a couple of weeks time. So the one which is talking about, so we had a problem statement where it's a sweet making company. So they make sweets like chocolates and other stuff, and the raw materials coming in, they're lying in the warehouse because it's the goods inward is not done. So like for 24 hours or for 48 hours, the goods are lying in the warehouse without actually being sent to the production. So what we did is we built a very, very lightweight Power Apps system for them. And that now runs on their phones and the tablets. So the supply chain person just goes in, does the GRN, and it integrates seamlessly with the ERP. So the goods need not really lie in the warehouse without being used. It immediately goes into the production area. So it's as simple, and we delivered this in like 3-4 weeks time with the overall UAT and everything. So it was that it's thrilling for the users also to see something coming up so quickly and solving their problem.
Okay, we have a philosophical question. So where does the quest for an automated enterprise end? I mean, we're all trying to be more efficient. So is there an end to this, John, Raina? Your thoughts? I mean, it's a little bit of a philosophical question, I guess. I mean, so where do you?
No.
We've done this. We've done this. What happens next? Like, what do we do after this?
Process improvement goes on forever. Otherwise, we wouldn't have invented cars and airplanes and electric cars. So there's always improvements to be made. But I think, we're still in the very early days of enterprise automation. We've still got organizations conducting the same business process, 17 different ways, depending on geography or business unit. So there's a lot of cleanup that needs to happen. And, you got to kind of get your house in order first before we can do a lot of this digital transformation. We've got to make sure organizations are doing things consistently the same way. And then, these automation technologies, once that's done, are really going to help accelerate those processes. But we're going to move into a very cool age with, I don't know if a lot of you have seen some of the stuff we're doing with Copilot, but we're trying to take as many business processes as we can and remove a user interface completely. So voice interactions, text interactions, that's kind of the way of the future. And we're doing some really cool proof of concepts in that area right now. But yeah, I see user interfaces are never going to go away. You're always going to have super admins that need to go in and fix things when a process goes, seriously wrong. But I think day-to-day folks that are using software, here and there for smaller tasks, we're going to start to see the disappearance of the user interface.
Fantastic, John. I think that's food for thought for everybody. Again, there's a long way to go, and I think this is fantastic. But again, I think this is all fundamental, very, very foundational to getting there. We've got to get some of these things done so that we can move down that path. So this is excellent. We're almost at time. I think if we have no other questions, I'd like to thank everybody for making it here today. If you have any questions about how to do a POC, how to get started, get in touch with any of us here on the Tangentia team or on the Microsoft team. We at Tangentia, we have offices across the world. We definitely are very interested in seeing how we can get this thing started. I think we have Rama. Is that a hand up? You have a question? I don't know if we can. If you can just type it, we'll read it out. But I think Rama, we'll take that offline. If you can, yeah, it was an accident. Sorry. Okay, that's good. So thanks again, everybody. Have a nice one, and thank you. Big thank you to all our speakers. I think exciting times ahead for everybody, and looking forward to this. Have a nice one. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.